everybody. Welcome back to LODNT. My name is Beth Megill, and it's been a while, but I had this urge to come on and talk a little bit about the concept of directions. This is the motif symbol for any direction. And as I've been working with students and I'm noticing some tendencies to it's easy to get confused with directions. Maybe you get confused with directions driving around your city or new cities. And directions are such a rich and beautiful and varied family of concepts. I thought it was worth spending a little extra time with them. So when we see this concept of any direction, we first have to take a step back and really think about perspective. And this is where I think I'm seeing sometimes a disconnect when students are first learning about this world of theory. So when we talk about perspective, we have to talk about our perspective in relationship to the space around us. And we can call that our orientation, right? So how are we orienting ourselves to the space around us? And this is the critical point, because depending on your dance background, you may or may not share this point of view somatically. And so it might be something that needs to be relearned or learned afresh in order to be able to embody it in a felt sense that makes sense somatically, cognitively, emotionally, and so on. So give yourself a little bit of leeway, right? If directions are challenging or if you're feeling a little disoriented, don't worry, you're not alone. I think just like any family of concepts, there will be preferences for bodies and cultures and dance practices, and we can always grow our weaknesses, strengthen our weaknesses, and rely on our strengths always to get us through. So I'm hoping that this series about directions will help you feel more confident in how you're interpreting directions and how you're using them in your scores. Okay, so when we talk about any direction and we're talking about orientation, we have to understand first that we're orienting ourselves according to what's called standard key. Now, the standard key is the idea that the dancer's perspective, when we are reading a dance notation score, is going to be the standard operating orientation. So when I am standing and I am reading a score and I see a forward symbol, for example, I need to understand that my front body, this whole front body, is expressing that forward direction. That is unique to my body and my upright orientation in space. So it is oriented with the gravity line, but I really, just thinking about forward, I really want to think that it is my personal forward. So when I turn my personal forward, and let me get my hips and legs going the right direction. So my hips and all of this front area, this is now my forward, even though I'm facing away from the camera. So forward is relative to this front body. You might in anatomy call it your ventral body, your front body. And so this orientation of being in your body is the crux that I think some students have difficulty reorienting themselves, because we might prefer to talk about our space. Maybe you grew up in a culture or in a practice that was very strong with your proscenium choreography. And maybe instead of relating to the dancer's personal sense of directions, maybe you related to the directions of the room, in which case the directions of the room, once established, stay constant. That is a different set of orientation principles. There is a way to describe that in dance notation. It's not wrong. It's just not what we use as our standard way of orienting. So when we are talking about direction, we first need to think about orientation. We need to think about how we are organizing ourselves and know that in this system of motif notation, language of dance, it extends onto structured notation, Laba notation, kinetography. The perspective of the dancer in an upright standing position is going to be your standard. So if you're watching a video of me, but this is my personal front. I have my watch on my left arm, my personal side. I have no watch on my right side, my personal right side. Of course, up is placed high, away from gravity. Down is placed low, right into the center of the earth. So that's your first introduction, and really feeling how your body, wherever you're facing, in a standing upright position, wherever you're facing, you're organizing yourself according to your personal front. And if you turn, you take that personal front with you. Whichever way you turn, you could face away from the audience and it would still be your personal front. And I think what might be helpful is knowing that this creates ease of reading when you are embodying or interpreting a score. When you're reading the staff, it's actually easiest to put it on your body when you're reading on the page. So think about perhaps when you see these concepts on the page, you are the reader. It's talking about you as the reader, your perspective in space. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit and lay a new foundation or strengthen your foundation in directions. I'm going to create a couple other videos to talk about this concept, but it really is so rich, and I hope that you can find lots of creative play with it in your practice. All right, keep dancing.